Wow, we have a live studio audience in the background here.
That's right, we do, Kelly. Yeah, we're moving up in the world. We got a bunch of people on already. Hey, welcome everyone to this special live episode here at the Pest Posse. Hey, I'm Foster here at the Pest Posse.
And I am Cully, visionary and creator here at the Pest Posse.
That's right. Now, on this special live episode, you know what? We have partnered with the pest control operators here in California to bring you a great discussion here with Ken Everett from the California Department of Pesticide Regulations, Chris Reardon, the Executive Vice President of PCOC, Darren Van Steenwyk from Clark Pest Control.
I absolutely love it. We got a whole crew of people here smarter than me.
That's a good thing.
So these guests will be providing guidance on the implementation of the illustrious AB 1788 that went effective January 1st, 2021 in California, because we know that there is a lot of questions about this bill. And we hope that after today, you will have a clearer picture on what AB 1788 is all about and how it should be implemented at your accounts.
Exactly. Now, if you have questions during this live stream here, we are going to do everything we can to answer your questions that you come up with. We just say to put those in the comment section there. We'll be able to see those on our end, and we'll bring those up on the screen and have you guys, like I said, we'll have Darren and Ken and Chris answer those. Just to let you know, we are having a little bit of technical issue with Chris, and we're not going to have his video, unfortunately, but we got everybody else. And real quick, before we start it, we've got a lot of people on here so far. We got, about 60 people with us already live, and we got a few people already chatting in on the comment. We got Jeffrey here just saying good morning. We got Ed saying good morning. Christine, good morning to you as well. We got Ashley Freeman in the house. That's great to have her. We got Jim Schaefer is here. We got James. We got Jamie. So we got a lot of you already commenting, and that's great. We'll do our best to make sure we answer your comments. And I don't think we have any other housekeeping things. Like I said, just hopefully after this, we'll give you guys some clearer pictures on this AB 1788. So I think without any further ado, Kelly, you got anything else you need to say?
No, let's bring our illustrious guests on.
Okay, so we got Darren, we got Ken, and unfortunately we don't have the video for Chris, but we've got his audio. So good morning, everyone. How are you doing today?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So why don't we start off with Chris, why don't you kind of give us a quick introduction of our guests here and who we have here today and what we're going to be kind of going over today.
Yeah, well, Foster, thanks you and Pest Posse very much for hosting this event. Really important to us, and I just wanted to thank everyone for taking your time this morning to be here. Let me first, and by the way, I apologize for the video challenges, but let's sort of get into sort of the crux of our show. We have with us Darren Van Steenwyk. Most of you within PCOC all know Darren. Darren chairs our legislative committee. Also, Darren was sort of our subcommittee chair who worked with our guest, Ken Everett, who I'll introduce in a moment. When we had discussions with the department on sort of where do we go next and what's implementation of 1788 look like. As many of you know, we talked in mid-November. We sent you a couple of notes out then to basically say by January 1st, you have to remove all your bait stations from your bait box. And subsequent to that, we've had some discussions with the department as well. But so Darren will begin here in a moment, give sort of an overview of sort of what this new second generation rodenticide looks like in terms of implementation. And then we also have with us, and I want to thank him very much, someone I worked with years ago, and we couldn't really pick a better person for the Department of Pesticide Regulation, Ken Everett, who's the new assistant director, and he spent most of his career in enforcement, so he's the perfect guy to be here this morning to answer questions for all of you on this chat. So very glad that we're here. Ken, thank you very much for participating this morning. I know you got a lot of stuff going on, so anytime we can get you to come in and join us, we are very glad to have you as well. So I thought what I would do is kick this off to Darren. Darren, I think, wants to provide sort of an overview of what we sent to many of you last week, talk a little bit about, what it says. And then we also thought, I know there's a series of questions as well, and a chance for you to ask Ken if there's, particularly because the bill was so broad, and I know they've tried to answer a lot of questions, but we have Ken here to answer some questions too, hopefully that we can get some clarification. So anyway, Darren, next, off to you.
Appreciate it, Chris. As Chris said, we've been working with DPR on the implementation of AB 1788, which is a bill that they were handed to implement in the field. This is a bill that I want to make sure that everybody knows started out in a building and ended in a building that DPR is not housed. That it is it is an assembly bill that Assemblymember Bloom has been working on for several years now, and it was formed and birthed, if you will, in the legislative realm of our state, and was handed to the regulatory realm, DPR, to implement. So they
Foster, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Chris. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, is Darren speaking?
Yes, he is. Yes.
I can't hear him.
Okay. I don't know why I can't, but he is speaking, so we're all good, Chris. So
Okay.
we'll let you know when we need you.
Okay. Yeah, I can't hear him.
So so we are
Okay.
So we as practitioners, reached out to DPR on specific clarity within the bill. They were kind enough to discuss these with us, to accept our questions, and then as a result of some of those conversations, as well as probably more importantly, conversations they had internally, and and conversations that they had with the county ag commissioners, DPR came out with an enforcement letter, and the enforcement letter, and if you haven't seen it yet, if you want to Google or on your favorite search engine, DPR enforcement letter 2020 came out. It came out at the end of 2020, and of course, I'm just now seeing the irony of calling this one 2020 because
exactly, Darren. Yeah, and we've
because we all know how much we love the year 2020 right now.
Exactly, and we've got that enforcement letter up on the screen so everybody can see that as you're kind of going through it, Darren. So
yeah,
you should be seeing that. But and we'll put we'll put the links to everything that we're talking about here, the enforcement letter, the actual bill itself. Once we're done with this live here, we'll put all those links here in the videos, so that way everybody can reference that at a later date.
Appreciate that, Foster. And so as you can all see, this is a letter that DPR wrote and created with input again from County Ag and them internally, and some of our questions that we had provided to them for specific points of clarity. And so, actually, one thing I'd like Ken to give Ken the opportunity to comment on this letter before we kind of delve into it as well.
Oh, thanks, Darren. Yeah, I just can't thank you guys enough for helping us figure out some of the questions that might arise from industry. I know from a regulatory standpoint, we tend to think about things in a certain way, so it was really, really helpful to have you guys on board to help ask some of those industry questions for us. So I do appreciate that. As Darren has said, we spent several months hashing these out, kind of just really looking into a lot of these definitions and things of that nature. And I think we've come up with a good start. I don't think this answers all or everybody's questions. I'd imagine there's going to be more in the future. So, we're anticipating that, and we'll be, once we start receiving those questions, we'll be glad to get those answers back out to you guys as soon as we can. So this is just the beginning. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we certainly do appreciate the effort and the time and everything the DPR has put on with these frequently asked questions that we're going to go through today. So we certainly do appreciate that, Ken.
Excellent. Yeah, as Ken said, that this is a work in progress. There are some points that have been very specifically clarified, and which we appreciate, and some that still need a little bit of explanation. And maybe Ken can answer that today, but maybe not. And so we'll we'll get to that. So Foster, if you wouldn't mind bringing up that point and kind of getting into a point, giving up the document. And then let's go ahead and go down into the allowed uses, right? Because that is really where we where kind of the rubber meets the road, if you will. And what the allowed uses are is essentially everything that is outside of the prohibited uses. Okay, because sometimes a DPR says you can use it here and only here, and sometimes they say you're not allowed to use it here, which means that you're essentially allowed to use it in the places where it's not prohibited. And the prohibited uses are essentially as you can read there, anywhere where food processing does not happen. And so there, I understand that in my statements there's a lot of negatives versus positives. You can't use it here because this doesn't happen, right? But that's the way that this document is written, and that's actually the way that the bill is written. It says basically these are the places you can't use it. So where can you use it? You kind of figure it, kind of go to the opposite of that. So let's go ahead and for specific clarity, let's go ahead and jump into the question and answers.
Okay, yeah, we have we've got a bunch of frequently asked questions that we came up with, and we'll start by rifling those off, and let's start off with, I mean, we already kind of went through what really the bill is, but let's start off with this with what are the prohibited uses here of AB 1788. I don't know who wants to start with that, either Darren or Ken.
Go ahead, Darren.
Okay, so the prohibited uses again are places that are places where food processing doesn't happen. So there's a handful of kind of key things, from my perspective, and so really I'm going to wait for Ken to correct me on this one. But some of the primary places are homes. So anywhere where there's a residential setting, so that would include apartments, duplexes, apartment complexes, any sort of residential setting. Again, that would include also things like grocery stores. Even though because food processing does not happen in grocery stores, and we'll actually get into that in a little bit. In one of the FAQs, it specifically defines the food processing through the definition of a factory, and then kind of almost every other commercial setting where food processing doesn't happen. It specifically lists airports, offices, construction sites. It also lists and specifically prohibits use in shopping malls. And so that would be considered in the strip malls as well, unless there's a food processing in that strip mall. We know that the bill specifically calls out you're allowed to use it around breweries and wineries. And so one of the interesting situations that we as industry are going to be faced is, especially with breweries, where there's been a rise in microbreweries and nano breweries, very, very small breweries that are in strip mall type settings and that are in industrial park type settings. And so trying to figure out how do we protect those specific entities within kind of that greater setting is going to be is going to be a challenge for us. And the bill actually kind of does. The FAQs actually does address that, and we'll get to that point in a little bit. And then again, your mind can go to 1,000 different places as far as industrial parks and and other types of settings where food processing doesn't happen. Ken, what kind of comment do you have to that?
Yeah, I just you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. I think I think it's almost easier to look at what's approved use versus what's prohibited. Quite honestly, this bill did restrict the use of SCARs severely in a lot of situations. And I think question number 2 on the FAQ really does explain where you can use it the best. And again, this doesn't necessarily cover everything. I think this is a good general high level, but we expect, there's always, especially here in California, there's always some unique situation that we're just never think of. So, but yeah, that was.
Exactly. Yeah. Now we had Ralph come up here and just said here, would non-residential commercial industries still be allowed, such as refineries? So I think that was that's a good question there.
Under this, no, it is not.
Okay, excellent. All righty. Okay, so here's the biggie for everybody.
Ken, did you want to?
That's a loaded question right there.
I'm not even going to say it, and Cully's not even going to say it.
Okay. Actually, I would like to. I would like to comment on that. And partly because I'm trying to shield Ken on this one, because I fully recognize that while this is a loaded question, there is from a practitioner standpoint, right? Because Clark Pest Control, we are throughout, we operate throughout the state, and we operate in almost every county, in the state. And so internally, as we think about this, we have to think about it on a county level. Okay, that essentially this enforcement letter that came out, this enforcement letter that came out is guidance from DPR to the counties to be able to enforce it. Now, the only thing that I can say about this is that the best thing to do is to be conservative, okay, on what you interpret the law to say as to where you can use it and where you can't, because just like every other regulation that DPR puts out, it comes down to enforcement level on a county basis. Enforcement on a county level basis. So we do know that some counties will prioritize this law. In fact, we already know that there has been some counties that have started doing inspections on this. Probably the counties, that we can think, right? Coastal counties, Ventura County, LA County, counties in the Bay Area. They've already began to do inspections on this law, and how exactly they're enforcing it, whether it is verbal warnings, written warnings, or actual finable offenses. We haven't been able to ascertain that information, but we know that's happened. And then we also know and received feedback from other counties that they're going to be enforcing it more on a complaint-wide basis. That they're not going to prioritize it, but because it is a law and a regulation, they still will have to deal with it. But it will be more on a feedback basis from the public, from whoever. And I would say that you probably want to be in close contact with your county enforcement agency, as to if and how they're going to enforce it. Because again, just like every other regulation out there that DPR has, it comes down to the priority that county ag is going to address this. So Ken, was that a good enough answer to dance around? I don't know. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. You did well on that. And quite honestly, unfortunately, this bill never had a transition period allowed in the bill. So January 1, it went into full effect. However, we're talking to the commissioners, we're not asking them to stop everything and go directly and start looking for this. If this works in their normal scheme, fine. However, it will be treated as any other law or regulation for that matter right now. And they will follow the same rules and the same procedures that they normally would. So,
and same priorities, I would assume.
Correct.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay. So onward and upward. So who does AB 1788 not apply to?
Well, that pretty much is a
okay.
Well, again, question 2 does kind of talk about that in the food and ag or in the FAQ letter. Certain federal employees, government employees, this does not apply to. Vector technicians, mosquito vector control, those guys, it doesn't fall under them. Unfortunately, anybody else though will fall under this category or under this regulation.
Yeah, so we know that there's a handful of we know that it specifically excludes production ag, but really second gens aren't used for production ag because we have to use them within 50 feet of a building. But it does potentially they can be used by vector control techs. So there are some counties out there that do a lot of rodent baiting, specifically in sewers and in and in public areas, and they are still allowed to use these products without any sort of restriction. But we as industry, are going to be required to comply with this law.
Okay, and we had a question come up here from Mike McKenzie. What type of guidance would you give for a strip mall that includes an urgent care center and/or medical waste generator that is exempt? Other businesses that are in the strip mall are not exempt. So what's your guys' thoughts on that?
Ken?
Go ahead, Darren.
No.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden, this became a hot potato. No, yeah. Not it.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that we were struggling with as well. I think this is going to have to be kind of on a case-by-case situation. So I would recommend that you either talk to your ag commissioner on this particular situation, because again, the devil's in the details with these situations. And, to just give a blanket yes or no here would be foolhardy on my part. There's just too many little details that we need to work through first to make that decision.
Yeah.
So, and actually, I'd like to follow up on that as well. So that because that question kind of goes in my mind into two different realms. Okay. One is talking about medical waste generators, and Ken, I'm gonna put you on the spot, and please don't hate me for this, but I'm gonna ask just for confirmation. I'm doing kind of some of my research on this, on this bill. It looks like pharmacies are not included as or not considered a medical waste generator. Okay. Is that even pharmacies that we would say issue or give vaccination shots? So there are needles and whatnot that are kind of produced as part of their operations, but those are not clinics. Those are considered pharmacies. Is that correct?
I can't say off the top of my head. I'd have to look up at the definition under 117705. That is the section that we're going to be referencing for that. It's not specific in the actual enforcement letter, and it's been too long for me since I've looked into this to really call that out. But that's a good question though, and I will write that one down and see if I can get that answer back to you.
Okay, because we've looked into it, and pharmacies is not listed in that code at all, but clinics are, and so we're kind of trying to tell the difference between what's a pharmacy and what's a clinic, right? Because this, it doesn't seem like a big deal until you realize every Safeway, every Target, every CVS and Walgreens, and even every Costco, or not every Costco, but a lot of those give vaccinations. Mm-hmm. And so, that really kind of muddies the water on that. And so that's again one of those things that we're not 100% certain of, that we wanted to bring to bring to play. So there's that aspect of the question.
Okay.
And then the other aspect of the question is, again, that one building in that strip mall. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned breweries before. That would be, say, a pharmacy or a medical waste generator. And so kind of the guidance that I would give, on this one is, and actually this is going to be based on question number 8 of your FAQs, which is, and I'm going to go ahead and read it aloud. It says, what if a building were to use it is within 50 feet of a building where the use is prohibited? And I would say that, and your response is, or DPR's response is, regardless of the buildings or facilities within 50 feet of exempted use, et cetera, lightly meets the expectation of the exemption of the amended law. The use must follow the product labeling and all other pesticide laws and regulations. So I would say that essentially, conservative side would be, we may be able to use it around that section, kind of around that, say, unit in that strip mall, but not the entire strip mall itself. Is that is that an accurate representation? Now, I would say that also makes actually servicing that account miserable, because now I've got the same building with multiple actives on it. But is that a good interpretation of that?
That's a good question.
Sorry to put you on the spot on this one, but these are conversations I know that we're having internally and as an industry for very specific clarifications on this.
No, and that's fine. I just I can't give you a solid answer right this second. I think this is one of those that I'm going to have to, an additional question I'm going to have to get back to you guys about. Quite honestly, I want to be before I put out an answer, I want to make sure I'm 100% correct.
Okay. Well, appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a comment. I just want to remind everybody out there watching that, as I watch what's going on here, and, Ken wants to give us good answers, but keep in mind that Ken and his department did not make up this regulation. This is a law, again, that came down from the state. So DPR is trying to figure it out just like we are. So just a reminder. I mean, I know Darren's totally patient. He gets it. But we all need, nobody said anything negative, but just a quick reminder that, we're all figuring this out. And so I appreciate all these people. Like I said, everybody here is probably smarter than I am, more in tune with what's going on. I just kept it simple, and I don't use second gens, and that made it easy. Plus, I mostly do residential, so I wouldn't be using them anyways. But that's not the case for some of you guys. Some of you guys do a lot of food plants. You do big production facilities. You need to figure this out, and that's why we're having this show.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
let's
go ahead. I was going to say, and so actually, I want to go ahead and kind of go to another question on the FAQs, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Foster. I'm gonna kind of derail this conversation. So we've kind of posed several situations to Ken where we're still asking for clarification. But in the FAQs, there have been points where they have provided a lot of clarification, and I want to bring attention to that.
Okay.
Okay. One of those is actually question number 7. And it talks about warehouses. So question number 7 says warehouses can be used to store food for human or animal consumption. Are distribution centers considered a warehouse? And the FAQs specifically say distribution centers are not considered a warehouse. Okay, and the reason why, according to the FAQs, is that a warehouse is specifically for long-term storage, okay? And distribution centers are more kind of a way station that there's going to be a lot of, a lot of turnover in it. And a lot of distribution centers have, may have food and non-food products stored in them for a relatively short amount of time. So we can, so whether we agree with this or not, because of the way that we want to interpret it, this is the way that this is one specific clarification that DPR has provided, which has actually been very beneficial. Another clarification is actually in question number 6. Okay, and in what is a factory? Because the bill talks about factories, and that was one of those that everybody just kind of looked at each other and said, I don't know what a factory is, right? I mean, are we talking about making widgets? Are we talking about making, are we talking about canning tomatoes, right? Because those are factories, do both. And actually, the specific bill talks about, the FAQs talks about the factories that are that are addressing specifically food processing. And it says, and to read from the FAQ, it says processes occurring in these food processing sites may include canning, freezing, cooking, pasteurization, or homogenization, irradiation, milling, grinding, chopping, slicing, cutting, or peeling food. Now, one of the questions actually that came up as that I'm gonna pose to Ken is, and we think we know the answer, but we're going to go ahead and ask anyways. Is what
I don't know if I have the answer.
What about fresh pack? So in the Salinas Valley, and so in the desert of Southern California, there's a lot of places that just take food products that came from the field, lettuce, spinach, et cetera, not tomatoes, but peppers, potatoes, onions, that type of thing. And they basically just, they don't do anything to them besides take it from the field, clean them off, and put them in packages, okay? Mm-hmm. We couldn't find the exact kind of clarification for that, but we feel that it falls within the spirit of this law.
Yeah.
So how would you feel about that?
Yeah, it would fall under the use exemption, mostly on the agricultural sites that produce any kind of farm product. So that stage, it would technically fall under that food manufacturing, food processing, even though they're just cleaning and packing, that is still considered a food processing aspect. So that is still.
Okay, yeah, because we're in California, we produce, we do a lot of different stuff with food. And we service a lot of those accounts, and that was not specifically that out there. So I just wanted to ask for that. Just wanted to ask for that clarification as well. So we definitely appreciate that.
Yeah. No, thank you. So so let's move on with these questions here. We kind of went a little out of order with what we had, which is no big deal. We just gotta.
Sorry, Foster. I was on.
Foster, I'd like to go back. I was looking at some documentation that pharmacy question is something we're still researching. I just found some documentation that we're that one's a complicated one, and also the strip mall. We're still digging into those two questions right now, so that's why I don't have a good answer for you, because we don't have a good answer yet. And it is something that our legal office as well as our enforcement branch are working on to try to get figured out. So hopefully we'll have some more answers here in the future.
Okay.
Well, and before Foster, before I kind of let you continue with the conversation, I do want to say that again, to emphasize what Cully said, as an industry, we actually appreciate that because it means that DPR is doing their due diligence to provide the best and most appropriate answer for that. And if if and when there is, let's just say a county ag inspection and warning or violation written on that, we may be able to kind of, I would say, reach out to DPR, on that specifically for clarity, and DPR may be able to work with you depending upon what the kind of what the circumstance is, because there's still a lot of questions surrounding the implementation of this bill. Now, before I've got more stuff to say later, but Foster, go ahead.
Well, I think we'll go into the next question here, which is, what second generation, uses are still allowed by exemption in AB 1788?
Well, that's covered in question number 2 as well on the enforcement letter. There is literally a bulleted list of items there, which include eradication of non-native invasive species, medical waste generators, agricultural sites, things of that nature. So there's a whole list there, and I would just point you there for a document that you can reference. Okay.
Darren, you want to add anything with that, or you all good?
No, yeah, it is a bulleted list. Some of the questions or some of the points on that we've already began to talk about and are addressed further down in the document for clarification, such as food manufacturing and processing and distribution warehouses and whatnot.
Okay. All right, let's go into the next FAQ here, which is, does AB 1788 provide any other exemptions to federal or state laws and regulations?
No, it does not. Well, it does not provide any more exemptions for state laws. It does, as I said earlier, does exempt federal property and facilities and things of that nature. So that would be the exemption, and that is in the letter as well. That's under question number 3 on the food and enforcement letter.
Okay. Next question. So how does AB 1788 affect structural pest control branch 2 uses here in the second generation?
Darren, you want to take on one on?
Yeah. It specifically limits it, and as to how we can use it. Again, that clarity, there's other specific bullet points, within the letter. I will say though that one of the things that we still have to comply with is the fact that these products are restricted use, and so we still have to use them within 50 feet of buildings, unless there are conducive conditions or evidence to show we can go within 50 to 100 feet away from the building, in the way the label says. We still have to have a branch 2 license. In order to apply them, or have direct supervision, which is considered electronic contact is still considered allowing as part of that direct supervision, and then all the other specific associated laws and regulations, properly labeled bait stations, properly labeled service containers, et cetera, et cetera. So what this law does is that this law adds on top of all of those other specific requirements that we have to apply. It doesn't eliminate any of those.
Okay. Next one here, can second gens, can they be used if there is a risk to public health?
The question will be yes, but that is on the determination of the local public health officer or the county public health officer, so that it will fall under their determination of when it can be used.
Okay. Next question here. This is the big one. So, what do people do with a product they can no longer?
Well, the enforcement letter talks. Go ahead.
Okay. So I've actually so we've had some conversations about this one, and this is actually question number 13. Okay, and so I want to say this is what we've been able to determine. So Ken, please tell me if we're wrong on this one. So question number 13, we interpret actually specifically addresses unopened containers, and so if that if there is unopened containers, you can either return them, or if there is product that is, let's just say you are a residential only company, or there's a company you do residential and small commercial, you don't have any specific accounts that can where these products are allowed to be used. Basically, we have to dispose of it properly and appropriately, and that is actually dependent upon counties, because some counties allow you to dispose of it within the typical landfill, just throw it in the garbage. Some you have to pay for hazardous waste disposal. Some you have to get rid of it in other ways. And that's kind of what we have been we've been doing. Ken, is that a correct? Please tell me yes, because that's what we've been doing. So
yes.
Is that a correct way that we have been able to address that?
Absolutely, you're right on point there. And I just want to add to that is that this is not a banned product as of yet. It might be in the future, but it is not illegal to possess it. So if it's proper documentation, you should be covered one way or another. So if you can't get rid of it tomorrow, it's not a major problem. It's just something that you need to work on if you are not using it anymore. But other than that, the food net, Darren and the FAQ does spell it out what you need to do.
Okay. So and actually, I did want to add a little bit onto Ken's. To kind of go in a little bit different direction, which is, when does this bill end, if you will? Because this bill is not a because this bill is not permanent. So this bill essentially will, the long and the short of it, end when DPR finishes their reevaluation of second gens and comes and proposes and accepts mitigation to address the specific issues as to why this bill was written to begin with, and so we know that's going to be a few years. We know that's going to be a few years, and so more than likely, the cynic in me says by the time that everybody actually understands this bill and is fully implemented is when DPR is going to come out with some new mitigation, but that's neither here nor there, right?
Sounds about right.
So sounds all right. And so that's something that I know that we as an industry, have to accept that this bill is a temporary bill, that it is not that it does have an end date. That end date is unknown, but it still does have an end date. Ken, did you want to comment on that?
No, you've explained it about as well. I mean, we can't really estimate when the reevaluation will be done. It is a few years off, and that's assuming higher priorities don't come in and interrupt that process. So, but yeah, I can't give you a solid date on when, but we are working on it. I just don't have a completion date for you guys.
Okay. Well, we got a lot of questions here that have come up, and some of these I want to kind of hit on real quick. First one here, I think we kind of went into this. Did I miss this comment? Are restaurants considered food processing? Ken, Darren, who wants to comment on that?
No, I'm telling you. Go ahead on this one.
Now, please.
Yeah, I'd be glad to comment.
Yes, it is considered food processing.
Okay. I think we talked about this a little bit. Has a definition for ag growing areas with small farms growing ag products in residential areas be allowed to use second gens, example, 1 acre properties in rural areas.
I think what you're going to run into there is the 50-foot issues or the labeling restrictions more than anything else. But technically, it would fall under this letter or under this bill. But again, this would be something you probably need to talk to your ag commissioner about to make sure you're in compliance.
Okay.
Actually, I do want to. I just want to interrupt here really quickly based on that restaurant response.
Okay.
Because Ken said restaurants are considered food processing, so the clarity within strip malls becomes that much more important later on, because most restaurants are in strip malls, and so if we have the situation to where we have a strip mall and we have almost every strip mall that you know of has a restaurant in it. And so, or something that would considered fall within that food processing. And so because restaurants are exempt, and we can use these products around this, right, Ken? That's okay. Then that clarity within within strip malls becomes that much more important.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now like I said, we're going to be adding more onto this hopefully with more clarification on these things. So I'll give a caveat on that if I'm not 100% on all these things, quite honestly, because this is something we're struggling with.
Yeah.
And so I might be wrong, but I'm going to call it for what it is right now.
Okay. Yeah. And so there definitely is that. There definitely is the caveat that everything that we're saying here is still up for interpretation.
Yep.
Everything that we're saying here may change, but this is our industries looking for clarification and DPR's kind of responses as of 8:50 on January 11th, 2021.
Exactly.
Right? That's where we're at. Okay, fantastic. Keep going.
Okay, so real quick, so we can get this. So I assume
to touch base on that point, right? Sorry, but I just looked at the implementation letter, and if I'm reading this correctly, it directly says, for example, prohibited uses include uses in and around restaurants, grocery stores, airports, offices. So
my apologies then. I missed that. I forgot about that.
Make sure.
Yeah.
Follow the letter. It knows better than I can.
Okay.
I can't remember.
That's fine. I just, want to make we're as clear as we can be. That's my concern, because
exactly.
I can be confused faster than anybody else, and so if I'm confused, there may be somebody else out there that got confused. So
Okay. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. So just real quick. So I think we already touched on this. I assume manufacturers of food packaging are not exempt. Is that correct?
As I recall, it does spell that out in here. I'm trying to find it. Processing plants are exempt. So I will put that on the list just to clarify that statement.
Yeah.
So Jeff, we are assuming the same thing because it doesn't have to do specifically with food production. But that would be nice to get again at that point of clarity from DPR.
Yeah. Okay. And we got another one here, Mike McKenzie. We got a lot of good questions coming up here. Are you aware of any designated processes for seeking approval to use second gens with public health office, or is that up to each county?
Again, that is handled by the public health officer. So whatever process each county will have, that will follow their process.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. I'm just kind of looking through the questions. Some of these things we have answered and everything. So
I think you should do the next one, Fred Rozo.
okay. So being restrictive use, do we add these products to our restrictive use when we report to Ag each January to get a restrictive use permit?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Cool. Okay. Yeah, and Jim Schaefer, yeah, we did address this, that the restaurants are prohibited. We just caught that on there. So, and we have talked about strip malls here and everything. I think we kind of went into this, with the strip mall. What about supermarkets? Are these exempt? Are these are second gens? Most have pharmacies and food processing going on inside of those establishments. So I'm assuming those are. What about those are exempt? Right? I mean, those are
the ones where we're kind of still working on those questions, and we'll have to get back to you guys on those. Like I said, those are there's still a few that we're still struggling with, but we wanted to get something out to everybody before January 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, good, excellent. Yeah, I mean, we've gone through a lot of stuff here and everything. I'm trying to think with the FAQ questions we kind of had we were to ask. I don't think there's really anything that's really kind of pending on that. I mean, everybody's asked a lot of great questions and everything. I'm sure there's going to be more questions that'll come up in the discussion here once we're done with this live here. And if you don't mind, Ken and Darren, we'll fire you guys off probably some emails asking those, and we'll try to do everything we can to respond to those in the questions. But I think this has been really good. Do you, either one of you, do you have any final thoughts as far as AB 1788 and this implementation of what we're talking about here today?
I just say, thanks for your patience while we work ourselves through these questions. You keep them coming. We want to be here to help you out as much as possible and keep you, keep you on the right side of the regulation and the law. Some of these questions are pretty complicated, and it takes us time to answer these questions, and we take that time to make sure we get the right answer out to you guys. So it's nothing worse than saying one thing and then having to reverse ourselves later on. So, so we do that's why we're slow on these things, but we're very meticulous about it at the same time. So, but I do appreciate everybody's patience while we work through this.
Yeah, no, we certainly do appreciate it. Mike McKenzie even came up here and said, thank you, Ken. We appreciate your guidance. And I think that's the sentiment everybody's thinking today, is we certainly do appreciate your time on this and your guidance. Darren, you got any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, from an implementation standpoint, again, we're gonna continue to look to DPR and lean on them for guidance, and help them, kind of give us, what we're looking for, because some of these questions are complicated, and they may not look like it on the kind of on the surface, but when you dig down, when you start digging down and you start looking at code sections and what actually is enforceable and what actually is stuff that our enforcement agencies can lean on, it becomes difficult, because there has to be very specific definitions and something that can that can be pointed to in black and white, and a lot of that stuff maybe isn't there, and so we're trying to figure it out. But I will say, from an implementation standpoint, I would recommend that companies, again, go on the conservative side. If you don't know kind of where you stand, or how you can how you can implement, or what kind of can use it here versus there, I would recommend, again, that you don't go out on the limb, and that you and then you don't use the product, because it is because that is the safe side that I think that will keep you out of trouble.
And I'd also add to that to just, your county ag commissioner is there to help as well. So, if you have a question, work with them. If they don't have the answer, they're going to send them up to us. We'll get them one way or another, but don't forget to use that resource.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you guys all for being here. Cully, you got any final thoughts on all this before we close this up?
But I don't know if we have time. So first thing I want to say is what we frequently say about rules, regulations, products, questions. Stay in touch with your local ag department. Create a relationship there. You can't go in and see them as much now, which is fine. Give them a call, whatever. I just encourage people. I always go in and meet my inspector if I can, and stay in somewhat touch with them, because they're not there to get you in trouble. They're there to work with you and help you out. And we're just trying to do everything right. That's the key. And they're going to help you do that. So I just completely agree with what Darren had said earlier about that. The other thing is, I also want to reiterate and just thank Darren for saying what I've been saying all along. It's like, just use first gens or use Cilantro or bromethalin, or, you don't have to use a second gen. I mean, I'm sure there's certain circumstances where they might be pertinent and more effective, but in 25 years, I've used a lot of first gens. I've never not gotten control. I don't know what else to say. I mean, we used a lot of second gens when we worked together before at Clark, but we also used a lot of first gens, and we never had an issue, So, don't be so locked into one thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, again, thanks everyone. Again, Ken, Darren, Chris, thank you for all this. We certainly do appreciate your guys' time today. Appreciate everybody being on here on this live one. Hopefully this gave everybody some guidance and made you feel a little bit easier about this bill and what we got going forward here in 2021. So again, thank all of you for being here. We certainly do appreciate it, and everybody to be safe and have great success in 2021.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right.